Welcome to Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024. Your day with a podcast being brought to you by Hot Springs County Travel and Tourism, reminding you that no matter how cold and snowy it gets, you can always find yourself in hot water. Go to thermopolis.com. Plains will continue to be mild. Been melting a lot of snow here over the last couple of days, and we're going to continue that trend as we'll have a lot of high and mid-level clouds like you can see here in the photo. The moisture coming off the Pacific will continue to produce off and on high country snow showers and flurries, but across the lower elevations east of the divide, it's going to be a pretty long stretch here of really not a lot going on. This is even though Pacific fronts are coming through, but the best moisture stays along and west of the divide. The storm systems just lose their punch. There's just too many mountain ranges that cross from the Pacific to the Rockies in this particular pattern to really do much east of the divide. But we're going to see more West Coast moisture. Boy, California got some big rains yesterday, 2 to 3 inches of rain around San Diego, and there's more coming to the western coast areas as well as the Pacific Northwest and the Great Basin. So the Pacific-dominated pattern means temperatures will be mild. We're not going to be breaking any record temperatures, but certainly after the Arctic outbreak, this is a lot more comfortable temperature-wise, and this will continue through the weekend and into early next week. This keeps the best precipitation to the south and to the west. However, and this is something we'll spend some time with here in a moment, winds of change. Winds of change are in the Pacific, which means changes once we get to February. So enjoy this gap in the weather we have now. That's kind of how this winter has gone. We have these gaps where there's a lot of nothing, then all of a sudden something comes in and really changes things, and that's exactly what's going to happen as we get into the month of February. So Pacific moisture will come in. Do expect a lot of high and mid-level clouds, mountains occasionally shrouded in snow showers. Satellite imagery this morning shows what's left of yesterday's California storm moving across Utah into parts of the Great Basin. There's going to be some snow shower activity associated with it. We have more weather across the central and eastern parts of the United States, and you can see across the Pacific, we've got another low here, another system here, strong jet stream winds north of Hawaii. We'll talk about that here in a moment. So really, a lot of the action in the northern hemisphere is going to be right here, and that occasionally is going to be pushing into the west coast here over the next week or so. The 500 millibar chart shows what's left of yesterday's California storm heading into northwest Arizona, but weakening as it heads east. So it's going to bring clouds, going to bring showers to the mountain areas along and west of the divide, and nothing that's going to be significant, but it will put down a little bit of snow on the ski slopes in most of the interior west. This is by Thursday. That system moves to the east. We've got another low coming in. The Pacific Northwest is going to have its turn with another round of wet weather for Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. That will go into the interior west right here, bringing precipitation, rain, and snow as it heads east. But like this low, as this low comes in off the Pacific Northwest coast, it just can't maintain itself very well and will again produce very little east of the divide, as we'll show you here in the moment. This is the precipitation forecast through late Saturday. Just like a map I showed you yesterday, we get to the divide here and you just don't have much left. But you can see the gradient. Southern California won't have as much rain here over the next few days. That's going to be shifting more north into Washington, Oregon, and Northern California. You can see into Boise, into eastern Washington, Oregon, there's precipitation coming, but much lighter the further east you go. But Arizona and New Mexico will continue to have some needed moisture falling into there. But look at this gap here east of the Rockies. From the northern plains across the southern provinces of Canada out into the Dakotas, this is just a downsloping area. You can just see how the mountains really play a huge role. Topography just plays such a huge role in the winter in terms of where the precipitation is going to end up and what the pattern is. So right now the pattern is for east of the mountains, from the Canadian Rockies to the plains of Colorado out into the Dakotas, there's just really not much going on. If you're a weather watcher, this is extremely boring in this area right here. All the excitement's to the west and south. And this is what the snowfall forecast looks like through Saturday evening across the west. Temperature-wise, Big warm up in south central areas of Canada here into the upper Midwest. Well, they'll get a thaw. And temperatures here, they're warmer, nothing off the charts. Warmer, pretty comfortable January temperatures compared to where we've been. And this is why. This is by Monday. We have high pressure, a broad area of high pressure developing in the west. And this is going to lead to the weekend and into early next week, a quiet stretch of weather. So we'll see the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast get the wet over the next 3 or 4 days. High pressure comes in, so not much going on. This probably takes us right up to the middle of next week. So basically 7 or 8 days ahead, the mountains and to the west will have weather along and east of the divide, mild temperatures, really not much going on. And this is what the 10-day precipitation forecast looks like. Continued very wet in the eastern areas of the United States. Very wet here along the west coast, even into the desert southwest, and then this wedge of dryness here that I just showed you. However, we have the winds of change coming, and we'll talk about that here shortly. This is the 10-day snowfall forecast. You can see for the Northeast, even the Appalachians, into the Great Lakes, there's still some snow probabilities. Even mountain snow down here in northern Mexico. These are the winds of change. This is by next Thursday. By next Thursday, the high pressure ridge gets shifted to the east. We still have the bitter cold Arctic air at the moment locked up in the high northern latitudes where you see the gray and the blue here. Notice out in the Pacific, these black lines are lines of equal pressure. Notice how tightly packed together they are right here. This is the pattern which we're saying are the winds of change. We are going to see very strong jet stream winds develop in the central and north Pacific. And we have talked about this in other podcasts. When you start to see the development of very strong jet stream winds going across the Pacific, that's a signal of things coming later. So we see this developing. You can call this what a lot of people talk about. This will be in about 7 to 10 days from now. You'll be hearing about the atmospheric river or the Pineapple Express. We see it beginning to develop in the Pacific by late next week and then into the first week of February. This begins to push the weather further inland with very strong jet stream winds here. This could mean a very wet pattern for California. In an El Nino, you expect that. You expect wet winters in California. And that's kind of what we've seen here over the past week, and it's about ready to happen again. But we're seeing a wholesale shift on this side of the hemisphere in this pattern by early February. So the current pattern we're in will change. Look at these jet stream winds coming in. This is by next Thursday. So this is what we're talking about. Atmospheric river coming on into the area, driving a lot of water off the Pacific right into the west coast and trying to carve out troughiness or an area of low pressure on the western side of the U.S. Look at this. This is by next Thursday. From Japan all the way to Southern California. Very strong jet stream winds west to east. This is going to drive a big change as we get into early February. So what we're going to see here is a really big Pacific influence with moisture. The question will be is how much will Canada get involved with maybe the release of some colder air into the equation. And with El Nino, these are the sea surface temperature anomalies right here. You can see those sea surface temperature anomalies showing up where El Nino is. And we're also seeing lately a warm up here across Australia and New Zealand. Sea surface temperatures here have warmed up. We don't know really why. It could be geothermal, but there's a lot going out here in the Pacific. We know we've got an El Nino. That's one reason why those strong southerly jet streams are wanting to develop across the central Pacific as we go out to about a week to 10 days from now. And this is by next Saturday, the 3rd of February. We see a stronger trough get pushed further east and another area of low pressure queued up to come in. And we've got the very cold air up here. So basically this starts to get really messy. The bottom line, the trend is going to be once we get to late next week into the first weekend of February and beyond that time frame, that's the next set of dates of stormy weather for the Rockies the central and northern plains, and not just areas west of the divide. And you can see this in the long-range forecast with these strong jet stream winds, really quite impressive all across the area. So if you want more action with the weather, we're going to have to wait a little bit, but it is likely going to be happening once we get into early February. Have yourself a good Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow.